Hi, my name is Hugo, and recently me and some other students in GMS TV have been doing a project about the Achungo Children's Center, which is Graham's sister school in Kenya. We also were able to sit down and interview a guy named Monty Fisher about how this all started, how the Achungo Children's Center started, because if you didn't know before, it's a school for destitute children and orphans in southwest Kenya. And he does, anyway, Mr. Fisher does a lot of, you could say, like drives and stuff to raise money and awareness. And he also takes people over there to spend, I think it's a week at the Achungo Children's Center. Anyway, we were able to sit down and talk to him and interview him. And so here is Mr. Fisher telling the story of how Achungo got started.
Just go. Now. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Monty Fisher, and I am Executive Director for a U.S. organization, a nonprofit that helps build schools and support orphans and destitute children in schools in Kenya. A local Kenyan, Michael Nyangi. He grew up very poor in this very rural area. There's like no jobs. People are just living off of their garden. And he made it through high school with the help of friends and family paying some of the expenses. He moves to the big city, which is like over 200 miles away, Nairobi, and starts working. And an early employer started putting money aside and finally got him into college. So he works his way through college, graduates from college in this very poor country of Kenya, and has a CPA for Kenya, which means, you know, he can get a job that's going to pay his way and put him at the top of the socioeconomic scale. And within the first few weeks of that dream job, he had an experience that changed his life. He was living in Kibera, that's one of the largest slums in the world, walking to his job in a bank. It was like his dream job. And he saw a woman sitting by the train tracks, and she had a baby with her, and he's afraid she was giving up. So he gave her what money he had. It was maybe $4 or $5 equivalent out of his pocket. This is Kenya shillings, just to try and give her some hope and maybe help her buy some food. And within a few days, later that week, he sees another woman, also by the train tracks, also with a baby, same story, gives her a little bit of money. But he saw something spectacular by the end of that week. These two women are sitting together by the train tracks. They're together. They found some wood, they made a fire. They used the money to buy corn. They're roasting it to sell. They had a business going. And business going. And a light bulb went off for Michael Nyangi. He realized that he could help women in the poorest of situations with very little money, and he quit his job. He was 22 years old. He quit his job, and he started collecting some money from friends, 50 cents, a buck here and there. It really was not much. And this eventually turned into a 15-person office of microfinance that helped hundreds of women in the slums of Nairobi to get businesses, little businesses started. But out of those little businesses, they were able to put their kids in school. Many of them were even able to move out of the slums. It absolutely changed their lives. So he had quit his job, and this was his focus. When he needed money, then he'd go back and teach. He'd teach for a few weeks or so in accounting, and that would give him enough money to keep going. Meanwhile, so this was 2003. He was 22 years old. So he's going back and forth to his village. This is a couple hundred miles away. And he sees these young kids, he said they're like 4 or 5-year-olds living on the street. And his heart goes out to him. It's like, what am I gonna do to help these kids? So he takes them into his home. I mean, he's living in a mud hut himself. And he takes care of them. And when he's not there, when he's going back to Nairobi, his mother's taking care of them. Over the course of a couple of years of doing this, so by 2005, he's 24 years old, he's got a couple dozen kids. He realizes, I've got to give them some education. And he rents this little shed a ways away from his village, and a couple of widows see what he's doing. They join him, and they essentially start a little bitty school. And that was the beginnings of what became known over time as Achungo Children's Center. Achungo is his tribal language, Luo, and means I stand, or I take a stand. And for him, it means I take a stand against AIDS and poverty. And he believes that educating these kids who have no options, no money, and are barely surviving will change what he calls the cycle of poverty and give them opportunity that they would never imagine. So I got involved in 2010. Before that, there was, through a series of events, a woman in the US heard about it and got her church involved. They put in a well. When I got involved in 2010, they were in this 4-room tin shed, and they had 130 kids. And they had virtually no books. They had no library. They had no storybooks. They had no athletic equipment except for 6 jump ropes and 1 ball that was flat. And I started taking teams out and raising money, and by the beginning of 2012, 2013, we'd built an entire campus. We bought a new piece of property, built out a campus. We had 10 classrooms, and by now in that school we have about 330 kids, 330 orphans and destitute children who are being schooled. It's a primary school with preschool through 8th grade. And now we are paying the kids' expenses into high school and have 50 kids in high school. And in the past year, we actually started a 2nd primary school in the area. And we have been winning awards. It's absolutely amazing. One of our high school students, 2nd year high school now, they took a standardized test, and he is the top math student in the entire county. We took out some athletic stuff. So we took out balls, overtime, teams when we go out there. I take teams out twice a year, families. A lot of middle school students have gone out as well. And it is so fun. We just hang out and play with the kids and spend time with them in their classrooms. Well, we took out some volleyball equipment a couple years ago, and now 7 of the students out of our school are at the national level in volleyball. It's just amazing. So this whole thing has been so thrilling for me, and it's so exciting to see these kids coming out of mud huts where there's no water or electricity and gaining the kind of opportunity that will not only change their lives, but impact their whole community. So that's kind of the basic story of Achungo.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you here.